And we're thrilled to have Kim as our speaker. Yeah, just some behind the scenes. We asked Kim to be our speaker probably a year ago. And we're very, very grateful. And we're very appreciative that she kept it on her calendar all this time. So without further ado, I'd like to give it to Susan Manella, who is our VP of Programs and our AAUW member extraordinaire. Susan?
Thank you, Burley. And thank you for making the contact and telling us what a great speaker Kim was. Greatly appreciated. I'm really looking forward to this program. I will give a brief introduction, then we'll let Kim get on, since that is who everyone's here to see. Kimberly Iozzi joined Dress for Success Northern New Jersey, 10 counties, as its executive director in 2018. She is a results-driven executive with over 20 years of experience in government and nonprofit management. Kim has dedicated her entire career to empowering low and moderate income families achieve economic self-sufficiency, personal development, and growth. Her topic tonight is the new normal, implications for New Jersey women. Kim is well situated to discuss this topic as Dress for Success works with a diverse array of corporate partners and serves hundreds of women each year at various stages in their careers. As a result, they get a bird's eye view of workplace shifts and trends in New Jersey and how they impact women. Kim, we are looking forward to hearing about what the new norm actually means for women and what we can expect for this year and beyond. Let's everyone welcome Kim. And other than Kim, ask that everyone please put themselves on mute. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm really happy to be here and was looking forward to this for the last year. So I knew this was a dynamic group of women, and with the work that you've done in your lives and in your communities, that this would be a topic that was pretty important. For those of you who don't know much about Dress for Success, I was going to share our mission so that you understood a little bit about what we do, because most people hear Dress for Success and the first thing they think about is, I'm going to go clean out my closet and donate clothes, and that's the end of it. And so I wanted to share the mission, which is to empower women to achieve economic independence by providing a network of support, professional attire, and the development tools to help women thrive in work and in life. So we've been in business since 1998, but the worldwide organization actually was founded in 1997. So we're really, I think we might be the second oldest in the world, which is pretty exciting. There's now currently 150 affiliates in 25 countries. So building on the success that Dress for Success had in the city, we came to Madison in 1998. And since then, we've continued to grow, expanding our services, the number of women we serve throughout all 10 counties. In total, we've served over 24,000 women. Last year, we were at 1,200 women. We partner with hundreds of corporations and are supported by hundreds of volunteers each year. And it sounds like we're really big, but we only have a staff of 2 full-timers, including me, and 2 part-timers. The second just started today. So serving all of those women, we wouldn't be able to do it without our volunteers and our corporate partners. So we do work very closely with them and have stayed really on top of the trends that are taking place in the workforce, even before the pandemic, so that we understand what their needs are and what the needs are of our clients. So we most notably are known for the clothing, but we do provide extensive training, coaching, mentoring. We have accountability groups, lean-in circles, and then a professional women's group for all working women that's open to the public. If you're a woman and you're working, you're welcome. What we found with that is that there's women who are working but are underemployed. And so they're working towards having a promotion within their job, or even making a transition out of that into something that's going to be able to keep them and get them to be economic independent. Our women vary just as much as our counties that we serve vary. They are from 18 to 65 plus. I think our oldest woman that we have had graduate from one of our programs was 70. They're unemployed or underemployed, and some of them are just making career transitions. Over 55% are educated and experienced. They're single mothers, they're grandmothers raising grandchildren, and they're caregivers. They're all phenomenal. And we've seen a lot of shifts since the pandemic, even before the pandemic, where at one end, we have seen younger women that have had to go into the workforce right after high school, bypassing college to just be able to help support their family. And then at the other end, we've seen women that are 50 plus become downsized, and then they're not getting rehired. And then there's that whole spectrum in between. So for us, we have to remain on top of what the trends are and things to make sure our programming is relevant to them and helpful. So we've learned a lot from them. And the first thing is that change is constant, whether it is initiated by you or imposed on you. And the pandemic definitely imposed a lot of changes that we were not ready for. It was a sudden and large scale shift. The job losses in New Jersey were horrific. I think at one point in 2020, we accounted for about 60% of unemployment claims in the state. Hotel industries, accommodations, food service, retail trade, healthcare and social service assistants were the ones that suffered the most. So home healthcare workers, case workers, those types of jobs by and large are held by women. And so when you hear about women being impacted by the pandemic, it's real. People lost their jobs. The companies didn't reopen. They couldn't go to work because of all of the mandates and, not having vaccines and a whole bunch of other things. ResumeBuilder.com said that 35% of women unemployed during the pandemic have not returned to work. And that's huge. And it's also impacted lower income and older women at a larger rate. And so we were trying to figure out, why is that? And if you look at how terribly we as a society pay social workers, educators, caseworkers, home health care workers, they don't get paid well. They do a really great and important job that's valued, but we don't pay them well enough. And whether they chose to not go back to work or they had no choice, they're not working. And so that impacted the lower income women. The older women, all of a sudden, were forced to learn this new Zoom world in order to keep their jobs and their livelihood. And some just couldn't do it. It just was, for the type of job that they were in, for the type of industry, learning all of a sudden new technology. And not only that, but being disconnected from people physically and working in isolation was particularly harmful to women. Schools and daycares closed, and I can attest to that, having my kindergartner start kindergarten at home on Zoom. And I will tell you, it was not easy while trying to work and have two kids at home, try to do that. Then you think of a single mother, maybe who lives in a one-bedroom apartment with her kids, trying to help them and then also work herself without a lot of space to hide. Home health care suffered because some people couldn't get into the house to help serve the elderly that needed to be cared for. And so people had to choose whether, to not have help for their family member or if they were going to become the help. Really, the burden was on women to figure it out. And then when daycare did reopen, the cost increased like you wouldn't believe, because now they needed to have less students to maintain social distancing, but they still had to pay the teachers their salaries and cover the cost of rent and everything else. So unless you were able to afford the cost of daycare, you couldn't, and then you were stuck having to keep the kids home. And so that impacted work. Women who experienced financial hardship as a result of the pandemic were also more likely to be abused by their partners. I don't know of, you hear of the baby boom and how certain times in our history, there was a lot of babies that came about. There's certain stories that you will hear with this, that people being in isolation with their partners are going towards divorce. There was abuse. There was all kinds of issues, and they were trapped, quite honestly. So we see from our social service partners that work with domestic violence victims and survivors that they were booming during this time. And how can you, when you're stuck in isolation, it's not like you can Zoom and talk with a caseworker while your abusive spouse is nearby. So there was a lot of anguish and suffering during that time. Then a majority of those who continue to work are doing so remotely or hybrid. And a lot of people have reported feeling disconnected and isolated from their coworkers, especially if there were people that were onboarded during the pandemic. It's very hard to develop those relationships when you're scheduled for a quick hour Zoom and nobody really talks. This would be the extent of the meeting where everyone's mic is off. And you don't get to know your friends and colleagues and network without a lot of extra effort. And then according to another report, 42% of women reported feeling burned out in their jobs in 2021, as opposed to 32% in 2020. And I bet you if we do the test again this year, it's going to be even higher, because with either less people going into the workforce or the changes that have been made, the demands that have been put on people, we're feeling burnt. And I completely get that. Then there's some changes that came about that were actually invited changes. And these, I think, are kind of if you have to look at change, most people don't like it. And I think this was a great time for us to reevaluate where we were in our lives and in our journeys. So you hear a lot on the news about the Great Resignation. And when you think about it, it's not just a professional movement of people leaving the workforce. It's also a personal choice and, a personal commitment to themselves to make a difference in the way that they're living and in what that work-life balance is. So as part of the Great Resignation, some of the focus was on family and caregiving. They chose, I work 60, 70 hours a week, 80. I don't see my kids enough. And now that they've been home with their children and they see what they've missed because of corporate schedules and work schedules, they realized that wasn't good enough. And the same thing with caregiving and being with family that needed support. So that was part of the reason. The rest was either in response to or in prevention of burnout. And burnout just from everything that we're dealing with now. I don't know that there ever was a work-life balance, but it certainly has blended quite a bit. I think the pot's been stirred, and at any given time during the day, you might be doing laundry, on a conference call, doing a report, helping your kids with your homework, whatever. it's crazy. And the pace of it and the demands of it, I think, are just really getting to people. Then you add these tech demands, all this new IT stuff. I have to tell you, you know, when it's almost funny, like in my bio and in my introduction, when I talk about being, you know, an innovative leader or whatever, but then you say in government and nonprofit. Government's not known for innovation. And so it's almost an oxymoron, but I will say that the tech demands in all industries, I have to say, working in those realms, I wasn't ever required to be on the forefront of the newest technology. Didn't even have to be proficient in it. And now that we've gone into this new world, everybody has to know this stuff. There's new software, there's new apps that you have to have. There's just newness every step of the way. And it doesn't necessarily translate with the way you're used to doing things or what your current skill set is. Just imagine being stuck home, trying to work in your 1-bedroom apartment with kids everywhere, and you're just trying to get by and help get them through school. And then you're going to take an extra class or two to learn a new skill. I mean, it's just not going to happen. So, you know, people took a step back and said, well, you know what? I don't like this. This isn't the way I like to operate. And I don't want to be here anymore. And the other thing is that I think we all realize that life is too short to be miserable. Just prior to the pandemic, January 1st, because I fought going to the hospital because I had told my husband I didn't want to go with a bunch of drunks from New Year's Eve. But I went into the hospital and they found that I had a mass on my pancreas. And by Valentine's Day of 2020, I had the Whipple procedure and I am fully recovered. But then the pandemic happened. So, I mean, I didn't know what hit me in 2020. And I do know that having the prospect that I might not get through, me personally, shifted my position in where I was and what I was willing to do and not do, and how much I was willing to work and be away from the family, and just overall how I was living. And I think a lot of people experienced it, whether or not there was some kind of crazy illness like that or anything. I think we all just saw that, you know, people that we knew that were getting sick. I think everyone knows somebody that passed because of COVID complications. You know, it's really an eye opener. Then I think people started challenging the roles and the norms. Once people saw that they could work remotely, why would they go back to an office? And why would they sit in a 2-hour commute? That's just absurd. For me to get to Madison in traffic is about an hour and a half sometimes. And I've been able to do more, work harder from the comfort of my home. And if I want to wear sweats from the waist down and look okay from the top up, you know, I can. And I think a lot of people, you know, when their company said, hey, you need to come back to the office, they're like, yeah, no, I don't want to do that. So that's challenged to the companies to respond to it. Flexibility has become essential. Flexibility in terms of timing of the day, what and how we're willing to work. Adaptability and flexibility are things that are really critical. If you put your time in and you get your job done, people want the flexibility to be able to live a life as well. And that's that balance that we all strive for, be it, you know, work-life balance, or, you know, we call it blending. I think we blended a little too much. So now it's just trying to restore what balance should look like. And people are making those conscious decisions now to make their lives healthier. I think people are also looking for connectivity in new ways. Now with all this Zooming that we've done and Teams and Google Meet and all the other names for it, people just want to have a human connection again. And I know for me, even personally, I've gotten to a point where I'm okay working quietly by myself, and I don't really feel like going out and being with a whole bunch of people. But I know that for my personality, like I need to be with people and I need to have connections. And so what we're seeing is that people are looking for connectivity in other ways than work, where they used to sit next to somebody in a cubicle or in an office. That's not there now. So they're trying to get out and find other ways to do it. And that's where we've seen a huge increase in volunteering, consulting, and the gig economy. So volunteering, we've seen a tremendous number of corporate partners who were used to traveling all the time or working these extended hours. Now they're not commuting anymore. They're not flying, they're staying home. And all of a sudden they have time to give back, and they want to give back. They also want to be able to, do something meaningful, but it also fulfills them to have that connection with other people. Consulting, people are trying new things. For those women who were downsized and are unable to get back into the workforce, they are starting to consult as a new way of supporting themselves. And they're kind of picking out the parts of their job that they like to do and saying, you know what, I really didn't like to do all those reports. I'm going to get somebody else to do that for me, and I'm going to consult, and this is what I'm going to do. And then the gig economy, I think we're just seeing an overall, even before the pandemic, an overall increase in, DoorDash and Grubhub and, all these things that you can do to be able to support yourself. But it also breaks up the monotony of sitting in a classroom all day or an office all day, and gives people an outlet to do something else that allows them to be engaged with people. The biggest shift that we've seen is a shift in people saying, I always wanted to be a painter, be an artist, be a whatever. And why not now? The time is right. We're all making change. Let's try it. What we're seeing at Dress for Success is people not only changing their jobs, but changing entire professions, where we're seeing people, and I mean, it's a dramatic, it's an extreme, going from accounting to painting, like what is that? And it's building a whole new skill set, a whole new network, a whole new way of life from everything that they've ever done. People are diving in head first. And this for us is particularly new. And it's really hard as a service to be able to provide that level of support, because it is such a drastic shift from doing one thing to another. So those are all invited changes. Then we have our corporate partners on the other side. So while we're working to get people into their jobs and, being successful in their journey, our corporate partners are just trying to get through this as well and trying to adapt as well as possible, which means a lot of changes on their part. I can't tell you how many companies before COVID spent millions of dollars creating an open space format where it was really pretty and hip and you could sit on balls and, rock all day while you worked and that kind of thing. No cubicles to COVID. And now we need those plastic dividers between everybody, and nobody wants to be together. So they're going through their own shifts. The pre-pandemic world was already chaotic. We had so much going on. If you just think back to 2020, I mean, that's when the George Floyd incident came about. There was a tremendous amount of social unrest, economic unrest, political unrest. There was so much going on, and then a pandemic hit. So things were already crazy. What we found is that organizations that dug their heels in to return to what we call normal during the pandemic were already behind the shifts demanded by their workforce. Normal is code for doing things the old way. And if you look at it that way, we always hear the return to normal. I don't think normal is going to exist like it ever did before. We will see a continuation of this digital transformation at the forefront of our existence. And I think it's not just the digital transformation, but the speed of which there's this transformation. Remote, hybrid, and freelance work is going to become the standard as opposed to the exception. Not that long ago, you were considered really lucky if you had a job that offered you the opportunity to work from home 1 day a week, 2 days a week, work remote entirely. And if you did take a job like that, they were paying less than the traditional in-person jobs. That's not the case anymore. And so that's changed things a great deal. Companies are now forced to maximize their limited human resources while incorporating this new tech and artificial intelligence, where we've got to find ways to build kind of a partnership with technology and artificial intelligence as we move forward, and how to create that relationship between the two is going to be very interesting over the next couple years to see how that plays out. A big thing that we saw starting really with George Floyd and the pandemic and things is that companies are taking on values-based work and social ventures, meaning that companies that you would think all along would be doing the good work, maybe just through a check here and there, and maybe they supported an event. Not all companies were as focused on the larger global issues of sustainability, clean water, food insecurities, getting access to the COVID vaccine. And so we started to see companies kind of put their work as work with infusing it with what they valued in their corporate structure. And employees are almost requiring that. They want to feel good about where they work. There seems to be a little bit of a shift. I mean, of course, everybody wants money, but there seems to be a shift, especially with the younger workforce, is that they want their work and their purpose there to be meaningful. And so there's a huge movement in transparency, in bridging these value-based work ethics to, the stakeholders, the investors, the employees, and anybody that does business with them. Even if you notice the shift in some commercials where you see what they're doing to help the world be a better place, that's been something new. And I think that's a good thing. Companies are also having to be creative in deliberately creating a developmental and growth culture. Again, it's not just about the money. And I think a lot of the younger workforce has been driving this perspective. They want opportunities for growth, but they want to learn new skills. They want to be part of a bigger picture. And so creating those opportunities has become really important. And companies are starting to lean on their employee resource groups to do that extra work that's going to support their employees. They're also promoting leadership that unifies as opposed to divides. The silos that we were so used to working in are going away. And it's now a much more fluid culture where you're seeing, I'll talk about it a little further below, but instead of having a manager work from the top down and having people report up, there's this kind of a new space that's kind of unknown to everybody. And it's a little uncomfortable because the workplace hierarchy has been the norm forever. And in some industries in particular, that's part of their grain. And now we're doing this weird thing. I don't know if you could see the whole picture of the other chart there, but this is what you call a holacracy. And it's kind of a new thing. I would say it's almost still a theoretical model, because unless you've got the talent and the resources to properly implement it, it probably won't look like this. And so instead of the traditional triangle model, you've got your organization as a whole that everybody's committed to. But then you have these smaller teams that may be made up of managers from different departments and different programs. And then you've got these outliers that have specific roles. But most of the people in those other subcircles have what you would call, I guess, a purpose instead of a role. Instead of a job description, you've got a function. And so instead of this hierarchy now, you're working with managers on all different projects. You don't really have one boss. You might have 5 or 6 or more. Everybody reports to everybody. And it's really confusing. But I think it could work better. And some companies like Novartis have been, and they're right in our backyard, they've been instrumental in kind of driving this model forward. I think Zappos was one until Amazon bought them. I forget the names of the other companies. Novartis is right in our backyard, and that's why I paid really close attention to it. So I always tried to figure out I didn't know that there was a name for it. And I stumbled across a chart and was like, oh my God, that's it. This is where our work is now, and it's confusing. So that's something that's changed recently. And the other thing is diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI. People are moving from intent to action. In every organization, they're being watched very closely to see what they're actually doing. And that really did come about because of George Floyd and the social unrest around it and the political unrest. Employees wanted to know where their company stood and what they were going to do to bring about better change and bigger change, across the board. So what we're finding as an organization is that the money where we would traditionally maybe get a grant or something like that from the company, it's all in diversity, equity, and inclusion. They want to increase the number of women in the workforce. They want to include, different types of women and different backgrounds, they want to expand their diversity. And they're trying, once you're in the organization, to create much more opportunity for equity and inclusion. And I think that these are all really, really good things that came about during this pandemic, the silver lining, if you will, because people have had the opportunity not just to reflect on themselves, but to reflect on their companies, on what they do in the community. And I think we've had a chance to kind of reflect. And the changes that these companies are making is really exciting, but it's just as new to them as it is to us. So I think as we continue to move forward, we're all still going to have some growing pains. And, because we're trying to figure this new world out. And, that comfort blanket that you have with the old way, the security and knowing what that's not going to happen anymore. So I would say all of this together means that not only will things not go back to the way that they were, they shouldn't. We've had this great opportunity to take a step back personally and professionally and look at the way we've been living and look at what our expectations are and where we want to leave the world when we do. And now that we've been able to identify some changes that we can make, why would we go back to the old way? Because then we're not going to grow. This is a really great opportunity for most women. And I'll explain that a little further. It's a great time for those who can to reevaluate themselves, reset, and revamp. By that, I mean, take stock of your skill sets, take stock of what opportunities you have at work and in the workforce, either reset or get yourself back to some training, get support, and continue to grow yourself so that you're able to compete in this new market that's constantly changing. And a lot of that revamping is revamping our attitude about adaptability and about, you know, how willing we are to deal with change and embrace it and not fight it. The reason I said that most women have this unique opportunity is because there's a tremendous amount of women, especially in our service area, that have underlying challenges that prevent them from doing that. There are a majority of women that we serve that are considering themselves lucky to have work and that they didn't get cut or furloughed or whatever. They just want to keep their head down and keep doing their job as long as they can to hold on to it because they're the only breadwinner for their family. You have other people who have other challenges, and be it accessibility or transportation, they don't have a chance to reset because they're the ones holding everything together for their families. And therefore they're burnt and they don't have the opportunity to revamp and reinvest in themselves. Financially, there's a commitment to reinvesting in yourself and to remaining up to date with skills. Not every organization pays for that. So that's going to come out of their pocket. And a lot of women can't afford to do it. So there's some women through all of this change and this time of reflection that don't have the time for it. And until we do more work to create more opportunities for them, for accessibility to opportunity, they're not going to be able to do it. And I think that that's something as individuals, as organizations, and as a society, we have to look a whole lot more at, because, you know, these conversations about the digital divide isn't just a digital divide. There's still the social inequities, economic inequities, race inequities. There's things that women will continue to face as we forge into this new world that we're in. And until we as a society recognize that and do some meaningful action to address it, those issues are still going to be there and women will be left behind. And that's why organizations like mine and yours and you know, everybody's trying to work together. And I think that's the key too, is that we have to work together. This idea that we're all in these silos just doing our own thing to help people isn't enough, and it's not going to fly in the future. We have to work together to make a comprehensive change and a comprehensive impact in the way that women are working and getting into work. Companies are seeing it, and I will tell you, over and over, we're seeing initiatives that companies are taking on that I would consider to be really bold moves to change their workforce. You know, we're working with some companies that are committed to mentoring our women, and especially women of color and who have disadvantaged backgrounds, to help get them into their workforce and continue to mentor them once they're there. We're seeing a lot of that, but we all have to be part of it. By refusing to adapt to change or to eliminate barriers for women, we are stunting our own growth as a society, as a culture, if we don't do this. There is a lot that's happened already, but so much more has to happen in New Jersey and beyond. So our motto to the women that we serve and to all women in our region is to speak up, to speak out, and be the change that you want to see. Require more of ourselves and of our communities, and help educate them to make those proper decisions to really impact the women. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to questions and comments. Anybody, now you can take yourself off mute.
I'm not sure I have a question, but I want to say great job with a lot to for all of us to think about. And I could certainly relate to all of that, things I never thought about. I don't want to be close to you anymore. When my job first went to remote, well, maybe I'll go into the office as long as I'm there alone. And now I'm thinking, why on earth did I even think that? I could work with my slippers on. I don't have to go out in the cold and in the rain. One thing I guess that hit me that I found very interesting was that you were saying people were looking for ways to volunteer and give back more. And I don't know if there's an answer to this, but how do you reach these people?
We've been especially blessed in that they come to us because they know what our mission is. And they're like, oh, that resonates with me. So we onboard about 30 volunteers a month. And it's a lot. And a lot of them, because of our corporate partners, the interesting thing is that they're saying to us, yeah, we don't just want to sponsor. We want to work with the women. We want to facilitate webinars. They want to be part of the discussion and the solution, which for me is very refreshing because once they are engaged at that level, we have their support. They're hooked in and they will continue to support our programs and give. But it's also phenomenal for our women because they're meeting one-on-one with hiring managers in a more social setting. So it takes that anxiety out of, oh my goodness, I'm going to meet with so-and-so for an interview. And now it's a more relationship-based kind of a thing. And for us, it's been very organic. I hope it stays this way because it's really quite pleasant, just to be able to work with the softer side of these big corporations, and see that their employees are just like any one of us and that they realize we're all in this big picture together, it's been beautiful, honestly. So I'm actually loving work now more than ever before because of all these kinds of changes that are happening.
Pardon me,
Are
would
there
all,
any other questions?
yeah, Nancy, pardon me if I can get my throat cleared. Would all this have happened if the pandemic had not occurred?
I don't think so. I don't think, and if it did, it wouldn't be at the pace that it's happening. I think there were definitely signals and signs that were going that way, but I think just as a natural response, we like to hold on to the normal because it's comfy. And I think we had to change. We had to make a difference. These companies were kind of forced to shift. There were some that were much more innovative and for them it was like, okay, whatever, we have a global market. This is the way we do business all the time. I think some of the smaller ones that may not have as much in terms of resources may have struggled a little bit more to do it and probably wouldn't if given the choice. But I think that our society has changed now a little bit. And I think that people are talking up more. Social media, I don't tweet and I don't TikTok or any of that stuff, but it's out there. And if you mess up, people are going to put that out on social media. And so I think companies are keenly aware of that and they don't want the bad publicity. And so whether they're doing it from the kindness of their heart or because they know Big Brother's watching, I don't know. I know that we can't go back though. I really believe that.
Mhm. So are you finding jobs for women, or where does Dress for Success fit into this?
So
Other than the clothes?
Yep, what we do is we will provide them with training and coaching to get them jobs. And then we work with these corporate partners to try to get them placed. And then what we're seeing now is that these corporate partners are having mentorship programs, they're hosting panel discussions, they're doing mock interviews, all kinds of things to try to help them get to where they need to be. And then, with some luck, hire them. And then from there, it becomes how do we grow them within the organization and how do we make them the kind of employee that they want to keep and invest in. So we're kind of at all stages.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any
Yes.
other questions?
Your focus is obviously on women. Would you say that most of this applies to men as well?
The changes, yes, but it's different for men. And by that, you know, when we go back to when the pandemic hit, they weren't the ones that were making the choice between caregiving and working. And especially being single mothers, there's not as many single fathers. Of course there is, and they have had to deal with the school issues and the daycare issues as well. But by and large, the industries that were in fact affected by the pandemic were mostly women centric industries. So they were impacted a little bit more. And I don't see from a voluntary shift that it's impacted as many men as it has impacted women. Because, you know, and that's something that we are looking into, because I want to know if they found the magic sauce. I want to know why they're not reflecting on, you know, who am I? Why do I go to work? What do I want to do, you know, in the long run? Do I want to go from an accountant to a painter? Those kinds of things. I don't see men asking those questions as much as I do women, and I don't know why. And maybe they found the balance, or maybe because the structure of the traditional workplace has been more favorable. I don't know that answer, but I definitely think there's a lot of research to be done on that.
Another question, you are North Jersey and address 10 counties. The 11 counties, is there a Southern organization?
Yes, we have a Dress for Success affiliate that covers Central Jersey, and we share 2 counties with them. We share Somerset and Middlesex, and then they cover 5 additional below that. And then the southern part of the state, I think just because of the lack of industry, they tend to be served by the Greater Philadelphia affiliate, because there's not a lot of corporate partnerships and those kinds of things that take place in the southern part of our state. I do know that the southern affiliate or the central affiliate does cover Monmouth County, which is a pretty good chunk. But then below that, there really isn't anybody. And then there is one in Hudson, but I always tease, like, if anyone knows anything about Hudson County, it's a completely different animal than the rest of the state. So they have their own affiliate. So equally nice people, but they do have a different way of doing things out there. Any other questions? Okay.
This is nice, and it's more a comment.
Can you hear me?
Yep, now I can hear you.
Okay.
Fall of 1997,
What's that?
and
Go ahead.
can you hear me?
Go ahead.
Yep. Okay.
The fall of 1997, and I was working remotely. I had a dial-up connection with my computer, and then by the time I retired from that in the end of 2013, but my boss, who lived in Connecticut, spent most of her time working remotely. So this just shows me that I was very fortunate, which I always knew, and that particular organization, at least, was way ahead of the curve in many respects.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There are some that have been doing this for a very long time. And for them, it was like, okay, big deal, you know, so we're remote, you know, but I think then where the shift for them is in their structure with the values, and in having to infuse their values based mission in their work. the clean air and all those types of things. So they still had to make a couple of changes, but there are some that were on the forefront. I remember I did the majority of my doctoral program online. And, when I first told people I was doing that, you would have thought I was going to the Sally Struthers school of something. And, I was like, no, this is serious. Like, this is really academic. And because it was so new at that time, people were really unsure what to make of it. And now that's the norm for colleges, and so I kind of feel blessed that I was on the forefront of that, getting it done a while ago. But yes, there are some that are very fortunate. So good for you. Burley, I think you had something.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to ask, I know a lot of women now, they're looking for jobs, at home because daycare really has doubled and it's just unaffordable. What types of jobs are women getting that, allow them to work from home? Are they IT jobs, or what are you seeing now that's hot in the workplace?
We're seeing a lot project management and, all of the, be it Scrum or Agile and all those kinds of things. They're super hot, and they're really looking, because they're traditionally male based, they're making a commitment to hire women. So there's a lot of hiring in that area. There's really, the pharmaceuticals are hiring because they've been working remotely with their global teams. So they're still hiring. I don't think there's an industry that we've seen that's not hiring. The ones that are hiring that want you back in person are the ones that are struggling the most. And that tends to be, healthcare, social services, and things like that. People just either they've gotten comfortable not having to deal with their cranky coworkers, or it's the commute or whatever. They just don't seem to want to go back if they have the option to work remotely with less stress. So.
Thank you.
No problem.
I just wanted to say hi. I had to join a little late, but and from what I heard, it was so good. And I wanted to say that's neat to hear you say the whole project management and agile and stuff like that. I work for LabCorp as a programmer, and we cycle through Scrum Masters, which are like project managers,
Yep.
And manage more, detailed tasks than even a project manager. And LabCorp has decided that they, all IT people will only work from home unless you really make a convincing case. They'll make a space for you in the office, but they'd really prefer that everybody work from home. So
That's fantastic.
it's great. And it's such a shift. I was so surprised because I have been working remote. I work for an office in North Carolina, and I've been working from New Jersey remote for the past 15 years. And I would go through cycles of feeling pressured to move down to North Carolina because with agile methodology, they want everybody to be in the same room. But the one blessing that came out of this is that they completely switched that.
Right.
So,
And that you touched on something too, is that now the job market is kind of open across state lines, where, you were worried about commuting and, how am I going to get home for the bus or whatever else. Now people have the opportunity to work for companies in North Carolina and everywhere else. And for our perspective, from a donor and a supporter base, we're actually working with partners in other states because there's no limit now. And it's like, oh yeah, there's an affiliate there, but we want you. So, we kind of try to do these joint ventures with them, but that's definitely a shift as well. So I'm glad it's working for you.
yeah. And that's awesome to think about getting people jobs in other states too. Like, that's great. Cause I feel like then you get a bigger and better talent pool,
Absolutely.
all the great IT people can't be in North Carolina. So
Exactly. Excellent.
But all this, it has a lot of ramifications.
But there are also a lot of jobs that can't be done that way. My daughter works in a Target
Exactly. Go ahead,
store.
Becky.
Have those kind of opportunities.
Exactly. And those are the industries that are suffering because they can't get people that want to work. And so the poor workers there are doing double duty, and will probably face more burnout. than some of these industries that have been more flexible. You need to have people manning the registers. You need people stocking shelves. You need people. The need for people is probably never going to go away, or at least as long as we're alive. So just getting people in the workforce, and then those companies have to then be creative about what they're going to do to make them want to stay there and work. If everybody else can work from home and they're stuck, being with people in interfacing on a daily basis, what can those companies do to help support them? And I know I was talking with Atlantic Healthcare recently, and we were talking about resiliency, and they have a whole new program that's designed for their emergency personnel to help them find resiliency and to give them some mental health and wellness support and other forms of support to keep them grounded during all of this, because they're so short-staffed and things like that. And I am hearing a lot of that from companies. So hopefully Target follows suit and has some development programs for their employees to keep them, feeling good about their job.
But as we're saying, this all seems fine for jobs of a certain level.
Yes.
And it would seem to me there are an awful lot of people who are falling off at the other level of jobs.
Yes.
I mean, just think about this. People not going to work and they're not taking their dry cleaning to the local dry cleaners. They're not buying lunch at the local deli, etc. Right. So there's a huge amount of fallout here also.
Yes, and that was at the end where I was saying most women have this time, is a good thing, but there's a whole lot that are going to be left behind unless we do something to change it. And, that's just not, you look at all these small businesses. I can't tell you how many towns I've driven through, and it's just like they're all boarded up. They couldn't keep up with it. And then because these companies are paying more to get the talent, they can't even keep up with that. So yes, there's going to be a lot of people left behind, and I'm sad that I don't see that there's a short-term quick fix that this could impact, a large enough group that then their children will suffer as a result of that. And that's really where, that's not okay for us. That's why we're trying to do the work that we do, but there's only so much we can do. And that unless some major societal changes happen, there will be women left behind.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I think we have time for maybe one more question, if there is one. Okay, I am not seeing any hands or lights go on. So we want to thank you, Kim. That was an absolutely wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Learning a little bit more about Dress for Success was great too. And we appreciate your time. We're going to go through a few announcements about some of our upcoming programs. You're welcome to stay, but we understand that you have 2 children.
Yeah, I got to tuck them in.
So thank you and let you go. And we really appreciate your time and expertise. Great job.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And
I'll give
it back to Burley for to coordinate a few quick announcements.
Okay, I think, Susan, you were going to talk about the February book group. Did you want to mention that?
Yes, the February book group. We're meeting the second Wednesday of the month. Right now it's at 1 p.m. We hope to be back in person in the spring, but right now we're via Zoom. We always welcome new members. And this month we're reading something a lot lighter and just fun called Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. Even if you haven't read it, if you'd like to drop in and join us, we would love to have you. You can get in touch with me if you need the Zoom link. Thank you, Burley.
Sure. And do you want to just quickly mention about the March program?
Yes.
For Beth?
Thank you. The March program for our general membership meeting, as previously announced, is not going to be on our traditional first Monday of the month. We had just published Thursday, March 17th, when our speaker announced that she had a business trip to Europe come up. So now we're going to have the discussion on Thursday, March 10th at 7 p.m. It will be virtual because our speaker's in upstate New York. And prior to that, we're going to have streaming rights to the documentary Without a Whisper, which is about Native American women and their involvement in the suffragettes movement. The program is being co-sponsored by the College Club of Summit, an AAUW branch, and the League of Women Voters of Union, Plainfield, and Hillside. And I do want to note that the College Club of Summit their foundation is providing a lot of the funding for this event. So we're very grateful for that. So Judy, I'm sure we'll be communicating the date change, and we will have you sign up so you can get the Zoom link for the documentary, which is just about a half hour. And that will be available to us the first week in March, 7 days before the program. Thank you, Burley.
Okay, great. Thank you, Susan.
Just make sure that you do sign up for it. We'll send out the link.
Okay, so we're busy in March. Peggy, do you want to make an announcement about the Mature Women's Grant?
The application for the Mature Women's Grant is on our website. Please encourage anybody that you know that might be interested to apply. Obviously, you have to be a woman over age 25 and over, and a resident of Chatham Township, East Hanover, Florham Park, Harding Township, Madison, Morristown, Morris Township, Morris Plains, or Randolph. And we definitely hold to that without exception. And the grant needs to be used for education-related expenses. This can be someone going for an undergraduate degree, a graduate degree, or a certificate. So please take a look at it and encourage your friends to apply. I believe the application deadline is March 31st.
Okay, great. Thank you, Peggy. I think we lost Beth. Did she leave?
No, Beth is still there.
No,
She-
but I'm still here.
Oh, hi, Beth. Okay, do you want to make an announcement about the STEM program?
Sure. I didn't have anything planned to say. I was just joining the event, but it's all going very well. We have, and I just got off of work, so my brain's a little flustered, but I have 5 professional women. So I included myself in that, but I have a gamer, a woman who's a gamer. I have a biologist who's on the environmental committee, an architect, and there's one more. Oh, we have a woman who's a lawyer working in healthcare. So we've got a good diverse panel of 5 women. I contacted our Tech Trek girl, and she's going to join us as a high school mentor, and then a girl from Girls Who Code. So I feel like we have the professional women and I'm calling them the influencers, the girls from the high school. So that kind of captures the imagination of the middle schoolers. And we have a forum where girls are signing up. So now we're just really in the publicizing phase. And I would love to get more professional women, but we definitely have enough going into it. We just got to get more attendees. I've reached out to Girl Scouts. So that's about it. I think, Judy, did I miss anything or?
No, again, we have a registration going. So if you know of a middle school, or let's say a freshman, sophomore in high school who would benefit from something like that, bring it to their attention. It was in the Madison and the Chatham paper, and I think also in Florham Park. Let's see what happens, but we're looking for more participants.
Okay, great. And that's March 8th.
It's March 8th, right? They
Okay.
need to register by February 28th.
Okay, great, thank you. And while everybody's here, let's just do a quick book sale announcement. Jean, do you want to? Or Marcia?
Yeah, Marcia did contact St. Elizabeth's to confirm that we're still on their schedule. So that's probably really our only update, Marcia.
Yeah, just save the first week of June because we're going to need as much help as we can possibly get.
I'm so excited about that.
Okay.
My whole family will be there to help. My kids are a bit like 10 now, so they'll be able to help.
Good.
Great. Okay, I think that's it. We do have a board meeting the 21st of this month, right? Let me see. Can you believe this month is flying by, but we have a board meeting in a couple of weeks. And if you want to jump on any Zooms this month, if you go to AAUW New Jersey, there's a couple of Zooms for Black History Month that look pretty good. I don't know if anybody reads that email that comes, but it's pretty informative. And I just wanted to remind everybody to share on social media all of our programs. This was really like a timely, wonderful, thank you, Susan, wonderful program. Kim did a wonderful job, and it's too bad we couldn't get the word out more. I mean, I know we recorded it, but every month we have a great program. If you could tell your friends and share it on social media, I think that would be great. Just a little reminder. And thank you, Beth, for keeping up the Facebook page.
Yeah, and if anybody ever wants me to post anything or update anything or change anything that you see, just contact me directly. I just need a nudge, and Susan knows all I need is nudge it just to remind me, and I'll do it.
All right, great. Thanks so much.
Susan, did we pay anything to Dress for Success for the program?
They're making a donation.
Good. Okay, great.
That
I
was
just said,
excellent.
I thought this was very interesting. I mean, I've been out of work almost 5 years. I can see, the things are changing a great deal. Maybe we ought to think about, is there a role for AAUW in any of this? I mean, locally, I don't know. But I do see a lot of women of, shall we say, maybe who don't have degrees, whatever, who are really going to have problems. Perhaps finding jobs unless they get some good training.
Well, they're also going to have difficulty if they're not working for one of these large companies.
Yeah.
Because I don't think that their client base is small to mid-sized companies. It's mostly the larger corporations that are investing in it.
And what's interesting is no one's really going back to work. I mean, I look at the train in the morning. I don't see anybody on it. It's scary. I don't know.
Well, I have 3 daughters. One has now been given the option to work permanently remotely. She works for the Hartford Insurance. One works for Montclair State, and she goes in sometimes. And then I have another one who's an architect, and she goes in all the time. She doesn't have the option of working remotely.
Yeah,
So-
I like I mentioned, my company has shifted. They were going to try to get people back, but then they shifted and just said,